have programs for children. Then we're moving on to students, and then eventually we move on to adults. But even for adults, we host a lot of book clubs. So when you look at all these book clubs, and I know they are not proportionate to the population of Kigali, but somehow we cannot say that there's nothing, that there's no literature or love of reading in our community.
So there's a love of reading in our community. Do you agree?
I have I've had the privilege to actually work in partnership with a public library, and we're a youth-based organization founded by young people, and we work with children. So we kind of observe the generational, differences. And one of the things that I wanted to mention was, for the young people, although they do say that they go to the libraries, one of the things that we have been able to notice over and over and over again is they don't process information that much. They copy-paste information. So basically, we are not yet trained. That's why, even as an organization, we really want to invest in reviewing our whole approach. I think we posted as a tweet that no matter how many libraries we set up, that's not the problem. The problem is the approach, because kids are told, oh, there is this space and you can go in to read. So they read and they want to memorize. We've grown in a culture where memorizing as much information is what is necessary. So what does this say? And we repeat it or paste it wherever is necessary and wherever allows us. For children, another thing is, I applaud and commend the new publishing houses that are coming up that focuses on very, very little children. I think the focus right now is 10 and below, which still addresses a very small percentage of the Rwandan population. If we were to ask us as a, as a place, the panel here, how many bookstores are in Rwanda? How many can you think of off the top of your head? And how many publishing houses can we think of off the top of our heads that are not for little kids, like Edition Bakame? How many of those places? How many novels that are not? Another informal research that I did was that we have about 90% novels, books that we can find that are that thick. 90% of those books are genocide-based. And I think 80% of those genocide or kind of political books are written by foreigners. So we really have very little numbers of authors, and the authors that we do have focus on very little kids. So that we cannot keep reading the Nicholas Sparks and Dan Browns forever. We need a new approach. We really just need to go back. I don't know if it's in schools, I don't know if it's in the society in general, and review the whole approach.
So you want us to nurture new authors who will write our own stories, as this book here says. So let me bring in Dr. Damasan here, because other people, before we started this show, when we were having the pre-debate on online, some people say that, but there's nothing to read. I mean, where are those authors? Where are those books that we will read? So how do you take this, being a person who sits down and does your research to write a novel like that or a book like that?
No one can say there is nothing to read. There are many things to read. You go to the Kigali Public Library, there are many books. You go to Kachiru, Ikirezi. You go to Ikirezi, you can read. You go to different libraries, to different universities here in Kigali, you can read. You buy a newspaper, you buy Igihe, but you read intelligently. So, to me, it's taking time to read, and understand what you are reading.
So it should not matter who the author is, whether it's local or an international author.
No, because to me, when you start reading, especially for kids, you don't need to know who is the author, but you have a document, take the time, read it, and understand. That's how you will learn. Reading, it's progressive. The habit of reading, you start, you read, you continue, etc., etc. You don't give up. That's how our children here, I think, in the schools, starting from the schools, they should read small booklets like this. That's why I brought this one, by the way. Because this one was written by
Gilbert
young,
Rwanda.
yeah, but not only him, but young Rwandese between 14 and 28 years old. So it means that the kids can also write. If they can write, they can also read. And if you don't read, you can't write.
Definitely.
So if you can't read, you cannot write.
No.
So it's not a chicken and egg situation. What comes first? Do we
I
writers
don't think
first before we have
let me-
readers, or what do we
because
need? Yes.
I'm saying this because I said if you don't read, you can't write. First of all, you read. Go to the primary school. You start by reading and also writing at the same time. But first of all, you read. You observe the letter. You understand the letter, and you try to make difference between A and B, right? And then you read and you write. But for like for example, if you want to write an article in the EGO or in the New Times, if you want to write an article, you can't write if you didn't read before what have been written on that subject. Okay.
But you see, doctor, it comes back to what she was saying. We have a copy-paste mind. So you have written. What I'll do, I'll read what you have wrote, and
For me to write.
and I'll write exactly in that same context. That's why we have most of our newspapers. They're almost the same. But and also, if you, like you say, I agree that you cannot write if you do not read. But there's a certain element we mostly associate reading with studies, because if you look in schools, if you have a novel, if you have comic books, because while growing up, one of the things that helps you is comic books or, you know, books with pictures in them. But if the teachers would see you, you'd have to hide them. They would be confiscated. So reading, we always, at least in the Rwandan schools, it's always associated with studying. So that's why we come to do researches in the library. And
because we want to pass those exams.
We want
it's
to
not
pass
just because
the
we want to
exams,
get this information for us.
to gain knowledge. And also our imagination is kind of limited, because if I can't read a novel and, you know, and I won't be able to write the stories, what I'll do, I'll replicate. And also coming back to the content that we have, how many authors do I'm sorry, but I don't know many authors, Rwandan authors, that haven't written about the genocide. As much as I honor that, we have to tell our own stories. But I believe we have much more stories to tell after the genocide, before the genocide. I don't know much about the history of Rwanda. I actually know more of the history of Burundi, more of the history of the French Revolution, than I know about Rwanda, which is a shame. So I think it comes back to the content. If you bring in, yes, we have to elevate the reading culture, but we have to tell our own stories.
We need to tell our stories.
We easily relate.
So do you feel that this is an excuse when we say that, you know, we do not have more Rwandan authors, so that is why we have nothing to read? The newspapers are the same. You know, I go to this one, it's almost the same thing they're saying. Is this an excuse, like, for real?
I don't think it's an excuse, because we can read East Africans. We like Chimamanda. Why do we like her? Because she's African, because she talks about kinky hair I can easily relate to than a white person. But instead of making an excuse, I think we can always we can try. Like you say, I can write on Iggy hair, I can send an article,